Greetings, I'm Jennifer, a 35-year-old woman who recently went through a divorce. The end of my marriage came as a surprise, as I had believed it to be the happiest relationship of my life. Upon closer examination, I realized that our union was far from perfect, with various factors contributing to its demise. Allow me to recount our journey from the beginning. I first met John through a mutual friend, and our connection was immediate. John, an attractive man with a captivating personality, and I dated for a solid 3 years before deciding to tie the knot. Throughout our relationship, things generally went smoothly, as we shared similar values and were accommodating to each other's needs. However, a significant issue arose with John's parents, Mary and Kevin, who proved to be challenging. The first encounter set the tone when, upon arriving at their home, I found only 3 plates set out for the 3 of them. Feeling confused and humiliated, I had to address the situation myself. Mary and Kevin continued to be unpleasant throughout dinner, with John remaining silent. Looking back, this incident should have served as an indicator of the challenges within our marriage. Despite enduring their disrespectful comments, John did not stand up for me or address the issue. After the uncomfortable evening, I gave him time to apologize, but he never approached me. Frustrated, I finally confronted him about the situation. Initiating the conversation, I expressed my need to talk about what had happened. John's response was dismissive, claiming he was going to sleep and accusing me of running away from things. In frustration, I confronted him about his lack of support, describing how he allowed his parents to mistreat me without speaking up. John defended himself by asserting he couldn't disrespect his parents in their home, but I refused to be guilt-tripped into suppressing my emotions. Did you ever consider the dynamics with your parents? Couldn't you have given me a heads up? I'm not asking you to disrespect them. You could have simply asked them not to speak to me that way. My parents are different, and speaking up might be seen as disrespectful. Are you still defending them? They are your parents, but do you even feel any remorse for what I went through? Can we not do this right now? I'm going to sleep. Good night. John left me standing there, feeling hurt and upset. It was incredulous that he didn't seem to feel any remorse for what had happened. I hoped that his reaction was due to embarrassment, but as I went to bed, I felt a sense of emptiness. The next morning, John acted like everything was fine, which initially peeved me. I didn't speak to him for about a week, holding on to my anger until he apologized. However, that apology never came. Realizing it wasn't a hill I was willing to die on, I didn't want to jeopardize my relationship with John over this issue. I began talking to him again, doing my best to put his parents' behavior and his neglect behind me. Although unspoken, we never visited Mary and Kevin again or made any effort to meet them. The next encounter was at our wedding, where I actively avoided them. However, I eventually had to interact with them when they approached us to congratulate us on our marriage. At the reception, Mary and Kevin inquired about our honeymoon plans. When we mentioned Hawaii, they suggested an overseas destination, offering to fund it under the condition that they join us. While the idea sounded appealing, their choice of Paris wasn't to my liking. In an attempt to have some time alone, I excused myself to the washroom, feeling discontent with the situation. Isn't a honeymoon all about creating special moments together? While Hawaii wasn't Paris, it's still a beautiful place I've always wanted to visit. What bothered me was that John decided without even discussing it with me. I tried to let go of my feelings and enjoy the night, but the mood had soured for me. I endured the rest of the reception and the ride home with John in silence, drained of energy and unable to articulate my upset feelings. The next morning I still felt uneasy, so I decided to talk to John about it. I expressed my concerns about the honeymoon plans, emphasizing that it wasn't about the location, but the fact that we hadn't discussed it together. A honeymoon is a special time for us alone, and I wanted us to have a say in it. John defended the decision, emphasizing the fantastic offer from his parents and the allure of Paris as a dream destination. Frustrated, I explained that it wasn't about rejecting the opportunity, but about wanting a shared decision-making process. Despite my concerns about his parents' treatment, John dismissed them, urging me to stop overthinking and ruining the opportunity. Hurt by his response, I reluctantly agreed to go along, suppressing my reservations. The vacation was scheduled a month after our wedding. When the day arrived, we met Mary and Kevin at the airport, and they greeted me with unexpected friendliness. Initially caught off guard, I closed myself off as I felt a shift in their behavior. While they were nice for the first week in Italy, they gradually reverted to their old ways. They began making fun of my attire, questioning the intelligence of my clothing choices. Some days, they deliberately excluded me from their plans to fancy places, deeming my clothes embarrassing. This behavior continued, leaving me feeling increasingly isolated as we still had 3 weeks left in the vacation. I dressed modestly and even received compliments from a few Italy people we encountered. However, for no apparent reason, they began excluding me. They would take John along without informing me, leaving me alone at the hotel for extended periods. Then came the comments about my weight and food choices. If I ordered anything other than a salad, Mary would make jabs at me while indulging in steak herself. Throughout it all, John remained silent, sometimes holding back laughter. I grew increasingly eager to return home, counting down the days until our departure. Spending time with John and his parents became unbearable, with his parents relentlessly bullying me while he ignored everything. I knew I had to address this with John later, but every attempt to talk to him had been met with indifference or avoidance. On our last day, I took the initiative to organize our passports and tickets together. When I asked John about my tickets, he claimed he didn't have them. Although it struck me as odd that Mary and Kevin hadn't given me my ticket, the strangeness of the situation didn't register due to the challenges of the vacation. Frustrated, I approached Mary and Kevin's room and confronted Mary about the departure. Mary casually mentioned that John, Kevin, and she were leaving in 3 hours. Shocked, I asked about my ticket, only to be told they forgot to buy it. Upset, I questioned how they could forget something so crucial. Mary dismissed my concerns, suggesting they would buy my ticket separately. Unconvinced, I expressed my frustration at being constantly pushed aside and told John that he couldn't keep supporting them. However, when I sought assistance in resolving the ticket issue, John's mother insisted I handle it myself, exacerbating the already tense situation. John, torn between his loyalty to his parents and his relationship, was left with no clear solution as they decided he would accompany them to Turkey, leaving me to navigate my way home. The news left me utterly shocked. As John and I left their room, I repeatedly pleaded with him not to leave me alone. But he looked away in embarrassment. John explained that his parents had funded the trip from their retirement savings for him, and he couldn't disrespect them. Despite my appalled feelings, I couldn't help but think about how his parents were disrespecting his wife. Tears welled up as I watched John pack his bags. He barely looked at me, offered no apologies, and didn't even suggest covering my ticket back. Though tempted to create a scene, I felt humiliated enough. When the time came to leave, John walked away with his head down, and Mary and Kevin waved me goodbye gleefully. I was furious, fuming, and stuck alone in a foreign country. John didn't stay back with me, compounding my anger. I had endured their behavior and remarks for the entire month and tolerated John's silence, but I had reached my limit. Revenge became a compelling necessity, and I knew exactly how to achieve it. Upon discovering that John's financial stability came after his parents' retirement, who had an assumable mortgage, I saw an opportunity. They had transferred the mortgage to John when he became financially stable. Now drowning in debt, with the house on the brink of foreclosure, John nominated me as the next owner. Considering my higher income and excellent credit, I contacted my best friend Nancy, whose husband Benjamin specialized in property law. Through a conference FaceTime call, we worked out a plan detailing how I had been solely responsible for paying off the mortgage since John nominated me. Upon the transfer of the mortgage, John stopped contributing, which I initially accepted, thinking it was a time for him to enjoy some financial comfort. However, after 7 months without any contribution from him, I confronted him about his neglect. In response, he berated me, accusing me of being jealous of his lifestyle. I realized it was time to take matters into my own hands. Before taking on mortgage payments, I had a life, and in hindsight, I should have recognized that as a potential red flag about John's character as a husband. Speaking to Nancy's husband, Benjamin, shed light on the questionable and borderline insane aspects of my relationship with John. Benjamin expressed disbelief, questioning how I hadn't realized John's true nature before getting married. I admitted I was in love and believed he could do no wrong. Benjamin pointed out the insanity of John using me to pay off his home, prompting me to ask for advice on what to do next. Benjamin assured me that we could easily transfer the house into my name, considering I had been making payments for over a year. He suggested contacting the bank to remove John's name and assured me he would handle the legalities, even preparing an eviction notice. Grateful for their support, I promised to be more vigilant in the future. Knowing John and his parents had a 45-hour layover in Turkey, I planned my move strategically. They intended to stay at the airport hotel in Istanbul, and while initially I was excited to be part of the trip, I now saw it as an opportunity to serve them with an eviction notice before their return. I booked a flight home, fortunate to secure one in a couple of hours. Throughout the journey, I was a crying mess, grappling with the realization of the state my life had come to. Despite having loved John with all my heart, he never called to check on me. The satisfaction of evicting them from their own house briefly consoled me. I wondered about their predicament, realizing the three of them would have to cram into John and my apartment, which was ending its lease next month. However, I quickly dismissed any sympathy, remembering they had abandoned me without considering how I would return home. If they could treat me that way, I had no qualms about taking decisive action. Without a shred of guilt, I embarked on my plan for revenge as soon as I landed back home. Checking John and his parents' flight status, I learned they were departing in about 3 hours. Running on adrenaline and fueled by the determination for revenge, I drove straight to Mary and Kevin's house upon my arrival. Using a spare key hidden under the mat, I entered and woke them up. My next move was to find the best divorce lawyer in my vicinity and initiate divorce proceedings. I contacted Nancy, and she and Benjamin came over, providing support as I signed paperwork to remove John's name from ownership and finalize the eviction notice. Seeing my friends brought forth the emotions I had been suppressing since landing. Returning to a place filled with reminders of John was challenging, but Nancy and Benjamin were there for me, letting me release my pent-up feelings. After they left, I checked John's flight and saw they had another hour before boarding. Wanting to appear composed, I took some time to sleep, managing to rest for about 12 hours. Upon waking up, I swiftly got ready and went to the divorce attorney's office to collect the divorce papers. Upon my return, I had about an hour before John and his parents were due back. My heart pounded as their return approached, but I knew I had to remain strong. Upon their arrival, they were surprised to find me in their house. Ignoring their questions, I declared my intention for them to leave my house. Their confusion escalated, with Mary and Kevin demanding an explanation. I revealed that I wanted them out because it was now my house, explaining that I had been paying the mortgage for the past year. John, caught off guard, attempted to shift blame onto me, claiming they thought he was the one handling the payments. I refuted his excuses, clarifying that he had nominated me as the owner, exposing his deception and bringing the truth to light. The shock on their faces confirmed the success of my revenge, and I stood firm in reclaiming what was rightfully mine. I carefully excluded him from the owner's list after he consistently failed to contribute any funds towards the property. Consequently, the house became mine, prompting a direct request for them to vacate. All three of them gawked at me in astonishment, attempting to plead their case and beseech me to allow them to remain. However, I sternly conveyed my intolerance for their bullying and instructed them to leave, warning of police involvement if they resisted. Just before their departure, I handed John the divorce papers, expressing my unwillingness to be with someone who exploited me for personal gain and failed to stand by me when I needed support the most. Despite John's attempts to apologize and beg me to reconsider, the emotional damage was too profound to sustain the relationship. Witnessing their departure filled me with a sense of satisfaction. Although the healing process from the hurt and betrayal would take time, I had regained control of my circumstances. I refused to let the actions of John and his parents define or affect me, an achievement I considered the ultimate victory. In the months that followed, John attempted to contest the divorce, but soon withdrew upon realizing the financial burden it would entail. The last I heard of their situation, they had sought refuge with relatives until they could secure an affordable place. Mary and Kevin swiftly returned to employment to sustain themselves. While it was disheartening to witness their struggles, it served as a lesson derived from meddling with the person who had previously extended a helping hand. Since parting ways with them, my life has been imbued with greater happiness. Although occasional memories of their actions resurface, I find solace in the satisfaction derived from my retaliatory actions.